until I left for graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in the household with them in Vancouver during my undergraduate years. I took the subway and bus to the university, and eventually there was no PhD program in Vancouver, and eventually I left to go to Columbia. And they did not separate until after I had left.
Did
So
you
things
care?
like-
Did that hurt you? Did you care? I mean, what did you feel when you heard
I
that?
tried, yes. On the one hand, I thought my mother was both the more creative person, the one active and dominant person in the family, but I also had some regard for my father. And I thought that at that point, getting older, it was not wise, sensible, or useful for them to separate. And I thought they could make adjustments. That did not happen. I think it was mainly my mother's doing that they did separate. My relations with both of them were mostly pretty good. Now, I do mention that my mother objected to some of my relationships, and principally one with the black girl that I met at International House,
Right.
who I was very close to, and we talked about a life together, and that did not happen, but I don't think it was because of the black and white issue.
What was the year? That was the 19.
I was at International House from 1948 to 50.
Lots of luck with that one then. Interracial, because you even said your friends were upset that you brought her over. You brought your black...
Not my friends,
Oh.
my parents' friends.
Oh.
My friends, none of my friends ever said anything like that, or would have imagined. I would not have imagined any of my friends objecting, and they didn't. The disappointment to me and the total surprise to me was that first my mother and then my father did object. When my mother came to visit, we went out together, and my friend Barbara and she sat at the table, and it wasn't really obvious to me until after that my mother was really upset.
Is it because she wasn't Jewish and she wasn't white, or
Because she was black,
black?
absolutely.
Oh, just absolutely. The whole thing was just
I
foreign.
don't think there was another component, no.
Right. But I just, is that because of racism, when she just thought it was too foreign, too unique, or
It
she
was just something that they had zero experience with.
Right.
They did not know, not in Austria, not in Europe, and not later in British Columbia, anyone who was not white. There were Chinese people, perhaps. I don't know whether they knew any of them very closely, but certainly no blacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they just weren't flexible enough to understand that.
So later on, though, in your life, they'd come and visit you separately. I know you mentioned how your father would cook, but just really mess up the kitchen. But you kept amiable relations with them until their death, right? Oh,
Yes.
and they were attentive to the grandkids. And...
well, let me modify that just a little bit. My mother came under her own initiative, but she did not get along with Laurie. They were a difficult combination. My mother expected to be listened to and catered to, and Laurie wasn't going to do that. And that made those visits sometimes very tense. She would come every year, and she would say, "I'm coming on such and such a date." She wouldn't ask us, "What are you doing? And is this a good time?" or anything like that. She just led her own life, and we were going to have to fit into that. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a very busy life. We had the children eventually, and our life was totally determined by whatever happened. We were both working, and she did not really understand that. And I was going to make accommodations, I think, and would have liked to keep better relations with her, but Laurie made that very difficult.